So these are the questions that you guys have all submitted in advance of the event and today as well. So thank you for doing that. We want this to be a discussion. So guys, feel free to chip in. Everyone's got a microphone, so all good. So first question, once an SEO geo strategy is in place, how long does it take for AI to pick up our content and to see results in website conversions? Quarina, do you want to start us off on that one?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I think it can be, it's kind of how long is a piece of string, but it is fairly quick. I mean, we spoke about being on the same day, so that's kind of how quick. I think the shortest is about 4 hours, I think, is what I've read, but don't quote me on that.
Tania, have you got anything to add to that?
I 100% agree with that. It can be super, super quick. It doesn't take forever anymore. From an accessibility point of view, I would just say make sure the content's really clear, you're following the rules, and that'll gain even more traction in terms of timeframes.
I can add one thing to that. The example I showed earlier with the Metro article, there was no on-site content for that. That was just a journalist request that I reached out to. Only piece of content available on the site, on the web for it, that surfaced within a day. So that was just a brand mention as well, no links.
Yeah. Ed, you got anything to add?
I would actually say think about like the query. So if you were searching for like best running trainers, this is something that is defined probably over investment, and they're going to be picking up own media sources, everything like that. So be able to pick up and actually influence that, that's probably going to be a 10-year achievement in terms of defining that category. Whereas like I showed with that competitor comparison, it's fairly quick, like as mentioned before, in terms of normally how quick Google search is working. For that instance, it was like a long tail query, so we were able to get that indexed in search straight away, and ChatGPT obviously conducted that search and picked up the information. So I'd actually think about like the query that you're searching for. If it's something more long tail, I think it's fairly quickly if the competitiveness is fairly low.
This next one's interesting. It's one I've heard quite a few people ask actually. How do you account for the inconsistency in the visibility of AIOs? Is it a case of just suck it and see? Martyn, do you want to jump in on that one?
Yes, unfortunately. It's obviously we have more tools, which is we're experimenting with at the moment. We discussed a couple already, PKI, LMREFs, which has given us a bit more visibility to understand where we're coming from. And unfortunately, another layer of complexity is personalization, like previous history, which means not everyone's going to see the same thing. Hopefully the tools will get better so we can track these things in a bit more comprehensively. But at the minute, there is an element of, suck it and see.
Ed, have you got anything to add to that one?
Yeah, I was going to say, like Google's been personalizing search for 10 years or something like that. So I'd actually say like we've been relying on ranking data, which has been personalized anyway. I think it's better to track these things than not, to understand like that. And I actually think some of the things that are being enabled now, like the likes of Profounder uploading, like you can upload your personas, so you actually give like information towards ChatGPT of who you are. So if you want to target like developers, they'll have like a target persona that they can track, so the question's more relevant towards them. So I think the tools are catching up like this, but I think it's better to track it than not.
This next question's a really prevalent one for us as marketers in the room. So where should we draw the line with AI and know when excellence and innovation requires human intervention? Tania, do you want to jump in first on that one?
Can you repeat that
Yeah,
again?
of course.
Sorry, it might be just
That's
the wording with my brain.
So where should we draw the line with AI and know when excellence and innovation requires human intervention?
Well, how that's signaling in my brain is that AI is going to need humans forever. Like, you need that human integration. You need to check, as we've seen all today as well, there's been so many searches that don't even commute to what it's meant to actually be searching for. There's a lot of misinformation. I think there was something about Google doing recipes eating rocks. Was that yours? Yeah. This is what I mean. Like it's regenerative. Like it needs to have that learning model. It is a learning model, and it still needs us to do the checks and aid it. Most importantly, we're teaching it. I think that's not, a lot of people don't actually talk about that. We're actually the ones teaching it. Where do you think the information's coming from? So yeah, it's always going to need us. And yeah, I hope I've answered that correctly.
Because there is a lot of fear.
Sorry if I haven't.
There is a lot of fear, I think, in the industry, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of like,
job security
AI is going to take our
yeah.
jobs. It's not. It needs us. And I think that's really important to say as well.
I know we've had this discussion before, and you've
plenty
probably
of
got something
times.
to add to this.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of AI slop out there is just, mind-boggling.
That's a really good word. AI slop. Like that.
And I think the reality is as we get more automated and we use AI a lot more, the real differentiator is going to be like genuine insight, genuine thought, genuine data, which isn't regurgitated through lots of different people and lots of different AI. And I think that's what's going to help you stand out, and having genuine opinion, which is going to add value to your content rather than the same old stuff which ChatGPT will spit out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you have to remember AI is trained to be neutral in tone. So if you are writing in a neutral tone, you and AI will sound very much like the same thing. So human intervention, human innovation is needed because the case studies, the real emotive stories, particularly in donation and fundraising and charity sector, for example, is what makes people go from zero click to actually clicking through to donating to buying your product. So I think it's very much still needed. I don't think we're going to be out of a job as marketeers anytime soon.
Okay, this is a very interesting one, and I know we'll probably all have an opinion on this, but how do you make sure that AI content does not look like AI content? Who wants to jump in first with that one?
I'm happy to give some insights, just put some examples I've seen. I think, as always, AI is always good to use as a framework, but you should never use it to completely replicate the content. Like you've seen problems of this already, where the AI is learning off, for example, the content that's already available on the web. So if everyone's using AI to write their content, over time, you can imagine that everything is going to start seeing the same. LinkedIn is probably a good example at the moment. There's a lot of comments that look exactly the same because everyone's learning off the same content. I've seen instances where people have used programmatic SEO, scale AI content at scale, very, very short term. They might get traffic for 2 or 3 months, it shoots up, but then it drops off a cliff. If you're looking to burn your website, churn and burn, great tactic. But I imagine most people in here, in-house brands, it's not the way to go. So my advice would always be, use it for your frameworks, use it for your structure, but always have that human element and not just writing content. We talked today about integrating social, video, other trust elements as well. And that's how you're really going to be able to differentiate. I think use it to assist, but don't use it as a shortcut.
I would definitely piggyback off that as well. Like, again, it's AI is going to need us. It's being trained by us. So, and I think one thing to say is that your brands and your companies inside out. So think of AI as the tool, not the answer. You work with it, not for it. So it's, again, a training model. So the more you put into it about you, about your values and what you're trying to do in your services and your pricing, etc., the more you train it, the more it's going to sound the way you want it to sound. So again, it's a tool, it's not the answer.
I would also say there's this risk or fear that we have of being bold. And I think we as marketers, we can be bold, have passion in your product, in your services, believe in it and sell it, and
brag.
And just talk about it, yell about it, write about in that passionate tone of voice. You don't need to be tonally neutral for your content, especially digital content. There's this thing of like, on our website, we have to be really kind of quiet and neutral. You can be about politics, for example. You don't have to be in tone. You can do a neutral stance with a creative tone, with your brand tone. Lean on your brand guidelines, I think.
It all comes back to brand personality, doesn't it? And how you position yourself, which kind of leads to the next one. And Martyn Gaines, I'm going to come to you on this one first. So in a world where AI never forgets, how would you approach crisis management in search?
Interesting, yeah.
Take it away.
So, I mean, really, it's about being prepared. It's about having a crisis comms plan, where you've thought of where all the risks are for your brand in advance. It's about then making sure that if something does happen, you're prepared, and whatever is published online is balanced and it's not kind of a complete one-sided story, because that will mitigate the risk of AI kind of having a really one-sided story when it's kind of sharing your information. And I think beyond that, it's what happens after the crisis is really important as well, and it's making sure that you're putting fresh information out there which kind of balances the story, so that over time it becomes only one part of the whole story, and you're mitigating the risk in that way.
And the follow-up to that is, you talked earlier about if you've got negative press from 2 years ago, unfortunately ChatGPT might pull that up. So talking about crisis comms in the moment, there's crisis comms a lot longer in the future, which can damage your reputation, which is why that consistent element of brand PR is very important.
I think you touched on it there, Martyn, as well. So that crisis comms plan that you might have had sat on a shelf for many, many years, it's time to look at it again. It's time to dust it off and make sure that AI is included. So when you're doing things like risk registers and stuff, you need to really think about that sort of thing going forward. Yeah,
because I think the other thing is reputation's becoming more important as well, from perspective of that's how they may not even surface you at all if you've got a damaged reputation. If there's evidence that you're an unethical business or you've not been approaching things in the proper way, then that will kind of go against you in terms of how the AI is classifying whether you should be shown alongside other competitors. It might just miss you out entirely.
Okay, moving on to the next one. Ed, I might bring you on this one first. So how important is structured data schema markup and semantic SEO in AI visibility?
I think there's been a lot of official statements that say like the structured data doesn't actually impact like ChatGPT visibility or brand, etc. But what I would say is like almost like a knock-on effect. Like we know that search uses structured data, so we understand that like organic momentum is likely to influence this. So we know that Google search uses structured data to influence the organic results. So by investing in that, it has a knock-on impact. At the moment, I think, like I said, it's not such a bad thing to structure your content anyway. So I would do that for the sake of it. But I actually think the impact is really you're influencing organic search through the structured data. So therefore, it's likely to impact LLM visibility in the space.
And Quarina, I think you touched on this, didn't you, in your presentation?
Yeah, definitely. And, it's definitely not going to hurt at all. I think it's actually going to frame the intent of that customer journey and much more, and kind of really guide you through it. But also, Tania kind of spoke about this, it's going to be accessible to people. It's going to mean that more people can actually get that content, and then that will favor it higher in the kind of summary gods.
Okay, this is one, Tania, I'm going to come to you first on this one because this is very people focused. So do you see many people slavishly using AI without understanding its limits, and even worse, using the output blindly?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a typical saying, isn't it? It's like you don't know what you don't know, and you know what you know. So I think for everyone, regardless of whether they're in the marketing industry or not, or the PR, I think everyone's learning it. I mean, my stepson's doing it with homework, for God's sake. So it is literally everyone is using it. So I think kind of echoing what we've all said today is that it is a search intent for everyone, regardless of who it is or their abilities or their industry. So I think, like I said, like take it with a pinch of salt. It's a tool, not the answer. And yeah, it's a training model. So you've got to train it in your voice and your style and what your purpose is. But yeah, I think people, because it's new and it's fancy and we're all learning about it, it's like, yeah, what can I do with this? But yeah, I would say, yeah, but it's, the intent is the most important with the tool, definitely.
I can't exactly remember which study this is, but I just remember reading about this fairly recently that that perhaps we're not seeing the productivity gains that we might expect from Gen AI. And that's, what it was being attributed to is it's capable of being a kind of beautiful liar in a way. It puts things together in such a perfect way that you just kind of convinced that this is correct and it's right. And therefore lots of people are just, exporting their critical thinking, bringing that in, and it's actually just slowing people down further down the chain. So when that work's completed, it's passed on to managers, passed on to other parts of the business, and then there's extra work that's having to be done further down the line because it actually isn't, anything, it's basically not of a quality or a standard that it should be. So I think that's evidence that, yes, a lot of people are slavishly outsourcing their critical thinking to it, and it's probably not, people that are using it correctly, it's an absolutely amazing resource. But if you're just, basically being lazy with it, then it'll just create more problems.
Yeah, I saw a TikTok. I was going to say I read somewhere. Let's be honest. I saw a TikTok. I saw a TikTok that like AI is just a pathological people pleaser, and I thought that's such a good example because it doesn't like saying I don't know the answer. It will just make up an answer.
I think just last thing on this as well, though, there's been a few studies out recently about how brainpower, creative thinking has actually, people that use AI too much, it is diminishing, not just with, the adults in the room, but also like the younger generation, people studying, people in college. It's got the potential to be a larger problem. So I think outside of just marketing, from like a societal standpoint as well, we're seeing, we work with accountants, for example, and some therapists, and they're seeing massive challenges at the moment with, people blindly following advice that is giving them from a legal standpoint, or, therapy, it's important stuff. So I guess the point I'm trying to make from this is like, not just from a marketing perspective, but actually just a wider societal standpoint is something we should all be aware of, as we're all in the know, and help kind of move that conversation.
We were discussing earlier, I think you might have heard this story about Deloitte, how they were asked to do a study. It was like a multi-million-pound study, and they ended up getting, was it sued or?
Yeah, they got caught using ChatGPT for their consulting. I think we were trying to work out if it was the US or Australian government. It was one of them, and they got fined 40 or 50 million for it. So
they were using quotes from apparent judges, which judges didn't actually make any of the quotes up, and they used it in the official study, which obviously the government paid millions for. So even Deloitte are being lazy with their AI.
I'm going to finish with this question, which is very much looking to the future, and I think we'll finish by coming to each of you in turn for this one. It's quite a broad one. So what's next after AI, given the pace of change?
You might have heard it a lot at the moment, but there's agentic AI, which is essentially where an AI will do the purchasing and the decision making for you. And it's slowly starting to roll out into platforms like ChatGPT, where you can basically, it will understand all your preferences in your search history. And based on those preferences, it can go out and buy something on your behalf. I think that's probably the next step of AI. There's obviously a lot more to it than that, but that's what we are for the immediate term starting to see.
That sounded a lot better than I was going to say. I was going to be like, sky is the limit. And then Martyn came out with very intellectual stuff.
Sorry.
No, I think what's next is, look, technology is always evolving. Technology has been evolving, and it will continue to do so. I think what's next is there's this really cool intersection of matching preferences and personalization. I think personalization in the way that we know it is probably going to change. I don't think we even know what that's going to look like yet, because I don't think we as humans are not thinking in that way. There is this, I think, Kansas team that basically trained AI to train AI, and there was no human. They just trained AI, and that AI would forget and train another AI. And what they came up with is in 4 hours they'd achieved what they wanted to in 15 years. That's the kind of mode and fast mode that we're thinking of. It's insane.
Yeah. So I mean, first off, let's just scale at what it is. AI is in its infancy. I mean, younger than infant. Like we are literally at the beginning of something huge. Despite how much we use it now, it is still like a 1-year-old. Okay, so like's been said, the sky is the limit. From my personal opinion, I feel like we've got this thing as humans where technology has evolved super fast. So we're in that mindset of we want to work less, we want to work like smarter, not harder type thing. So I think we'll be using more AI in our lives. So I'm thinking like the smart homes will get smarter. I'm thinking we'll have more AI employees. I'm thinking we'll rely on it more in transportation, hospitality. like flying, I think it will integrate into literally more everyday lives, not just marketing. I think it'll be your AI best friend. Robots are being created. Don't even start me on that. It's a bit scary, but it's exactly what I mean. I think AI is going to be a really cool integrated lifestyle for the near future. So yeah, need to learn about it now. Very, very serious stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone's points here, and it's one of the biggest technological changes since the internet, and we need to adapt to it. You know, I've seen, for example, in the creative industry, I was speaking to a customer over in California yesterday, and some of what they're doing now with commercial advert creation, it's crazy. So we need to adapt to it. But I think although we need to adapt to it, people are seeing a sea of sameness, same LinkedIn, content online. So authenticity, we still need to keep an element of that when it comes to our marketing strategies moving forward. So I guess the one takeaway I'd have from this is just make sure you're not completely switching to an AI programmatic content model for your website. Retain that authenticity, make sure it's plugged in to your brand strategy, and that's ultimately, I think, going to help retain brand loyalty and help grow that customer.
I think for marketers, it's going to make us bigger than we think we are. I think when we're talking about PR, maybe not getting the credit they deserve, search maybe not getting the credit they deserve. I actually think it's going to elevate us to a position where we're working with decision makers in businesses to understand how products are being built and think. If you can imagine it, people that are going to be discovering the new age of Nike running shoes, it's going to be through the likes of ChatGPT and things like that. So they're going to be understanding what is the public perception of that information, what is the information being displayed to the World Wide Web across that. And I think we'll be working with the likes of product teams, etc., to actually think, this product's lacking this area. Can we invest in that? Because when we're comparing ourselves to Adidas, we fall short on that area. We can invest in content around how we enable that product to be better, etc., etc. So I actually think we're going to get more credit for this. I think we're going to be working with wider teams to incorporate this. Even in a few years of this, I'm working with teams I would never thought I would be working with. I'm working with customer support. I'm working with the CEO on our brand perception through LLM. So I think it's enabling us to be less siloed, working with that and having a greater impact across the companies as well.
So I think we're kind of already, completely hooked in with our devices. Everyone carries a mobile phone around. Arguably, we're already basically cyborgs. We're all hooked into the internet. At any moment, we can search for anything. I think that technology is going to go even further. In the end, there's going to be, we won't need to carry this thing around with us anymore. We will just be connected to the internet. We'll be sharing things with each other in a way that we can't even imagine right now. This is probably not what's next, it's what's next. But I think as part of that, there's going to be a bit of a rejection of, technology. People are going to go back to wanting to have human connections with brands that they're interested in. So I think from a marketing perspective, and it's very top of funnel, so it's kind of where I'm at. It's how do we build those emotional, human-led connections with the customers we're trying to reach? Because I think there is going to be a bit of a rejection of technology, and people are going to kind of want that authentic human experience. So I think moving in that direction is going to be really, really important.
Excellent. Thanks for that, guys. Can we have a round of applause while they go back to the safety of their seats?